What makes someone pro-Israel? The answer, I think, is in a book I read a few years ago by Eye on the Media. This is the second book you should read, called The Devil and the Jews. It was written before the Holocaust in 1940. And its writer, Dr. Trachtenberg, Joshua I think was his first name, was trying to understand why people had all these wild ideas about the Jews. And it's an interesting book because it's written before the Holocaust, because you see, the Holocaust has distorted our own view of Jewish history, because it is such a blinding sun that it blocks out all the anti-Semitic stars in the sky. And he writes it on the eve of the Holocaust to try to figure out why people believed all these wild charges about the Jews, why they believed in blood libels, they believed in poisoning wells, they believed the Jews were spreaders of plague. And it wasn't, as many people unfortunately believe, only the ignorant masses who believed it. It was the educated people who believed it. Voltaire, the father of the Enlightenment, was a total anti-Semite. Shakespeare, the greatest writer in the English language, who wrote The Merchant of Venice and depicted Shylock, he didn't even know what a Jew looked like, because there were none in England at the time. They had been expelled. And Trachtenberg was studying this problem about why these intellectuals would believe all these terrible things about the Jews. And what he said was, what he came to understand was that people believed all these terrible things about the Jews because they wanted to believe it. The mark of the anti-Semite is somebody who wants to believe the worst about the Jews. The mark of the Philo-Semite is somebody who wants to believe the best about the Jews. As it is with the Jews, so it is with the Jewish state. The mark of someone who is anti-Israel is someone who wants to believe the worst about Israel. The mark of someone who is pro-Israel is someone who wants to believe the best about Israel. I'll give you an example. When you see a headline in a newspaper, and the headline says, Israeli soldiers killed 9 Turkish peace activists on a boat heading toward Gaza. Do you say, yeah, I could see that? Then you're anti-Israel. Or do you say to yourself, wait, something's wrong with that. That cannot be. I have to learn the facts. Now, it doesn't mean that people who are pro-Israel think Israel is perfect. I have news for everybody here. We're not perfect. We're a sovereign nation. We're an imperfect democracy. But what it means is that you give Israel the benefit of the doubt. You want to believe the best about Israel. And Israel is innocent until proven beyond a shadow of a doubt otherwise. Well, if that is the test, the New York Times gets a big fat F. You see it in the constant demonization of Israel. You see it when they twist Israeli virtues and turn them into vices. As one of the earlier speakers said, when they publish an article about pinkwashing, when Israel is the only place where gays are free in the Middle East, and they turn that into an attack against the state of Israel. You see it when they call into question Israel's very legitimacy, when they publish articles questioning whether there was a temple on the Temple Mount. I thought that was only for Yasser Arafat to do. Or when you see it when they publish op-eds of historical revisionism, as they published a few years ago from President Abbas about what happened during the War of Independence. You see it in the New York Times putting a spotlight on every blemish in Israeli society and putting it on the front page to take marginal phenomenon and pretend as if this represents Israeli society. In July 1944, the New York Times printed a story about the deportation of 400,000 Hungarian Jews to their death and about the 350,000 more who were about to be deported. That made it into a 4-inch column on page 12. But every idiot in Israel who uproots an olive tree can get onto the front page of the New York Times. The editor's decisions, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, decade after decade, betrays a mindset that believes the worst about Israel and that wants its readers to believe the worst about Israel. Even worse, by casting Israel as a force for evil, this so-called, self-described, stalwart supporter of Israel has contributed to the spread of anti-Semitism. It is ironic that the same paper that constantly holds political leaders responsible for the actions that come from creating a climate of hate does not seem to appreciate what it has done over the decades by turning its own pages into a safe space for hatred of the one and only Jewish state.